It's Friday, and it's time for the Ring of Honor post show as we recap episode 63. And I just have three words for you: location, location, location.
I am your forever ROH Women's Champion, your fallen goddess, the Alpha, the Minion, Overlord, the ROH Gatekeeper. But most of all, I am the best in the world, Athena, and you are watching Women's Wrestling Talk.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling network on the planet.
TGIF, thank God it's Friday. Happy Friday morning to all of my good people, and welcome to the Ring of Honor post show here on Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling network on the planet. I am your professor, Gerard Bonner, GB, Teflon G. I mean, pick a name. It's all good. I'm not particular today. I'm just glad that we're hanging out here for some good conversation about Ring of Honor. And shout out to all of you who are in the chat. And of course, I am not by myself. If it's a Friday and it's Friday morning, I know it's early over there, but she's hanging out with me. I've got the boss lady here. Boss lady, how are you?
What up? How are you doing? Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter when you're an adult, whether it's a Friday or not. I mean,
Well, I hope so. I mean, it'd be nice. It'd be nice. I mean, I have one less thing to do today.
one less thing. It was funny. This is something I think we should aspire to. I was talking to one of my rich friends, and they said that you want to aspire that every day is the weekend for you, meaning that you can just get up and do whatever you want to do, not something you have to do. So that is
I like it.
that is the goal.
I like it. I like it. I like it a lot. So let's dig into today's show, where, of course, we are recapping episode 63 of Ring of Honor, which aired from Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Florida. Now, of course, Daly's Place is super popular for all that it served AEW for. During the pandemic, much like the WWE had its Performance Center, AEW had Daly's Place, which really worked out really, really well for them. Of course, you know, the connections, of course, to the Khans and the Jacksonville Jaguars, that helped a great deal. Plus, AEW was still very much in its first year, so to have a place where they could actually do shows was fantastic. It was also here at Daly's Place where they made the announcement of Tony Khan's purchase of Ring of Honor, which got a lot of people excited back in 2022. And it wasn't until 2023 that we would see something actually happen with Ring of Honor in terms of weekly television. But with all of that said, this is only the very first time that a Ring of Honor show aired from Daly's Place in Jacksonville. And it was just kind of interesting. It was interesting. And I kind of want to start with that. What were your thoughts on what we saw visually in terms of Ring of Honor at Daly's Place? And if you saw the show, you know why I'm asking. If not, we will certainly explain it momentarily.
I felt like the first match, the lighting was like off, like not, obviously it was outdoors, so you need a certain type of lighting. Apologize for my dog. It's usually her time at this hour, so she's
she's like, I don't care that you have a show.
Right. So I feel like the lighting was off. That was one thing that was glaring, but I guess I got adjusted as the show went on. Also, this is actually not just because of Daly's Place. I think this is in general, which I feel like for the morale of ROH, and I'm saying this because I've only went to the pay-per-view. I haven't went to a regular. Well, I mean, they tape it during AEW, which is probably one of the reasons why I haven't gone, because I usually leave by that time. However, the morale, because there was not a lot of people there. You could see visually people were on the phones. You could see, they tried to pan it where and this is like a classic thing. Like if you learn how to do like social media and stuff, you pan it where it make you look like there's more audience than there really is.
Absolutely.
So I'm like figuring like the morale for the wrestlers, knowing that it's not even like a like AEW is like right there. Like your boss
Right.
is the boss of AEW.
Right.
Not to say that's where you want to go, because I think the content and the storylines are a lot better on ROH, but it's just kind of one of those things where it's just like it's kind of frustrating. I don't know. As a wrestler, I feel like I would be frustrated in the situation. I'd be happy to work because I'm getting on some type of television. However, it's just kind of like, what's happening here?
Yeah, and that's really one of the challenges, just kind of going behind the velvet rope on this. So, of course, well, if you did not know, usually when Ring of Honor tapes, whereas a year ago when it launched, it had a dedicated space it was taping in, a soundstage in Orlando. Now they're basically just kind of taping for and or after whatever AEW program is there. So whether that is, it's usually before Dynamite if you've got a Rampage right after, and then with Collision it's both before and after. So with that said, you know, the people have bought a ticket for AEW and they're kind of getting Ring of Honor just sprinkled in there, and usually it they start taping before the AEW show. So not everybody has arrived and things of that point. What was so interesting about this was usually in an indoor venue, you can't tell time of day, you can't tell those kinds of things. It was very, very clear that this was before the sun went down. And so you had to deal with that piercing sunlight, which our commentary team did, I think, a great job of working that into, you know, some specific matches where it became an issue. But yeah, it was just and to your point, it's like when certainly the WWE has an outdoor show, they prepare their lighting so that you don't have that kind of glare, and you know you watch the sun go down and things like that. That kind of detail may not have been as present in this particular show, which becomes incredibly evident as soon as you turn it on. So I think that's interesting, and I think it's interesting that they started with perhaps the match on this card that had the most story attached to it. And that, of course, was the match involving the Outrunners and the Infantry. So to their credit, to the credit of Ring of Honor, they opened the show with this, and they started by somewhat telling and showing parts of the story to kind of get you up to speed in terms of why we even have this match happening. You know, the Outrunners had pretty much been taking the moves of the Infantry and making them their own, which is a real no-no in wrestling, particularly if you do that without permission. And so, you know, all of this copying that had happened, and it finally came to in this match here at Daly's Place. In that whole theme of copying the Infantry, the Outrunners showed up for the first time with a brand new member and a woman, much like the Infantry has Trish Adora. They brought out Laser Linda, who, for those who might know her on the independent scene, that is Hyena Hera from the Nightmare Factory, who oddly enough will be with us tonight at Southern Honor. But having her in again was just kind of another foil in this story between the Outrunners and the Infantry. What were your thoughts on this match in terms of story and an opening match?
I mean, again, with the opening match and the light, it definitely I don't want to say kind of and definitely, but it definitely threw me off a little bit, because I was like, wait, because you would expect this from something else. But it was a good match. It was really great storytelling. You know, shout out to the commentary team. They had some really good comments during the course of the whole show, but you know, they helped assistants telling the story, like you were saying, as far as stealing them, how they stole their moves, how even the infantry stole back their moves, and then stole some of the Outrunners moves, which is really interesting as well. And you can't complain if somebody already took your moves. So storyline wise, it was really, really good. So I liked that aspect of it. And then the introduction of Laser Linda. I hope this is not like a one-off.
Right.
You know, because, you know, she definitely came, you know, matching. And it was funny that she was wearing the windbreaker, because I saw this meme on Instagram like a couple hours before. It's like, there's one thing about the 80s. They really knew how to fight the wind, or they had a real problem with the wind, which was really like just interesting that now you fast forward, you see Laser Linda in this 80s style windbreaker. So it was a great match. I love there's like a couple of moves that I really love. I love a spear. I love a boot to the face, which is the ending move. And I'm a fan of it. Like and then it was like they did something like off the top rope.
Yeah.
And an extra boot to the face. I was like, wait, okay. I could
right. Yeah, it was a really solid match, and you could make the argument, certainly no knock to the main event on this show, but you could make the argument that if normally the best story ends up serving as the main event, you could argue that this probably should have been the main event of that show. But you do need a strong opener and a strong closer, and this certainly served as a very strong opener for this episode of Ring of Honor. Shout out to the Infantry, who continues to grow in momentum as a team. They really parlayed that momentum into the AEW Tag Team Title Tournament, and then it also turned into a tag team title match for them back at Supercard of Honor. And it's really good to see that they are continuing to grow with their momentum and with their popularity with the Ring of Honor crowd as well. So the Infantry gets the win on this one. And from there, we move to an interesting matchup involving Nyla Rose, who has been spending some time in Ring of Honor. And she took on the debuting Cameron Brennan, who, if she looks familiar, she is the former Amari Miller from NXT. And watching this particular match just kind of reminded me of some things that we've said earlier about what to expect from Ring of Honor. That Ring of Honor really does have that feel of an old school wrestling show that you would either see in the territories or, reminiscent of, say, 80s WWE or 80s NWA, where you're going to get this mixture of potential main event matches along with matches that are designed to both show off and highlight a particular wrestler while introducing us to someone that might be considered to be enhancement talent who could have a future in the business. What were your thoughts on this presentation between Nyla Rose and Cameron Brennan?
I kind of because I know WWE is they now kind of acknowledge to an extent somebody else's past.
Sure.
I kind of wish the commentary team would have done that, because, after when I saw her, and then also how she carried herself, it's clear that she was on a bigger stage.
Yes.
And like, no shade to people who haven't been, but it was clear that like she's done this before on this particular platform. So, when I did when I did a quick Google search, I'm like, oh, okay. So I wish, and again, they did an amazing job. It's just like that would have been another connect the dot. And also a little bit of investment, but maybe they left it out for the fact that, it appeared to be, after the first shots from Cameron, it was, all Nyla, obviously. Right. So it appeared to be more of a squash match. So maybe that's why they left that part out. I don't know. But either way, for her to start off like that, it was a really great, I like story. Like, okay, obviously you're bigger than me. You're a name. You've been attached to the company. You're a former champion. I don't care who you are. I'm going to start and I'm going to hit you from behind, because this is, a win is a win. And so I really like that aspect of it. It was like, okay, like, where are we going with this? And then, it obviously flipped, and, I think we all expected it, how to end. I don't think Cameron put over on Nyla. So.
No, I agree. And it's interesting. There's a part of me that wonders if Cameron Brennan did not want her, WWE tenure to be mentioned. I don't know. I do know what's interesting is, as Amari Miller, she primarily did things on Level Up and had a couple of moments on NXT. But during those moments, she was always kind of the happy-go-lucky, good girl kind of thing. So to see her as kind of the villain and a bit more aggressive. Was certainly a different take for sure. And but I think she needed that in a match against Nyla Rose, where she was already, smaller in stature and was going to be facing a disadvantage. So there was that. But again, I think what this was supposed to do, it did, which was to obviously show Nyla Rose in a strong light, but also introduce this audience to Cameron Burnett. And I think that was done very well. Again, a big win for Nyla Rose. Now, this is where things, I think, start to get interesting, because we get a backstage promo coming from Cool Hand Ange, very hard to say, and Matt Menard. And since we're referencing NXT, they were known as 2.0 over in NXT. Of course, they've had probably a more interesting tenure over in AEW with their connection at one point to Chris Jericho and the like. They had quite an interesting backstage promo, and this kind of lends itself again to this thought of Ring of Honor being presented as old school wrestling, because this time around we did not have anyone serving as a backstage interviewer for this particular piece. And again, if you've watched wrestling from the 80s or the 90s, most of those times they did these promos on their own, really speaking their heart and the like. And so we got to really see that. And in seeing that, we really got to get an idea of what's next for this tag team, who's primarily been operating in a solo capacity over in AEW. Really, we've seen Matt Menard more so in the commentary space for like Rampage and things like that. While Cool Hand Ange, revealed in this interview that he actually was preparing to retire when Ruby Soho announced that she was pregnant, and that kind of really gave him something.
Child to me.
I'm sorry. She is indeed with child. And as she announced that, that kind of obviously took away from what he was going to announce. What did you think of, this backstage promo and where it could go for this team?
Yeah, I thought this is kind of the great thing about wrestling, where it seems obviously like, life lends itself to the story, because the question was like, were you really thinking of stepping away? Or, obviously, he talked about Ruby, and I think he said she was nesting, which instantly thought of the Professor, because with child, if you guys have no idea what I'm talking about, you have to go back and watch WWT Live. And if you, that's where you'll find it. I'm not gonna. You have to search for that nugget. But yeah, it was just kind of really, referencing the real life and everything else. So it really made me think, okay, well, were you really planning on leaving it all? And if that were the case, what were you planning on doing? Which, he might not have planned on doing it at all. And this is just lending to the story, which, he may or may not eventually tell us in real life. So it was really good. I really like the crossover and the tie-ins, because now you could play into it a little bit more, as Professor with Little Professor. When you have a child, or when your wife is nesting, or your wife is with child, it makes you want to step up a little bit more and be the breadwinner, and be the protector, and give this child who you've never met everything in the world. So that could be a whole storyline in itself, where it's almost like any means necessary thing. If you kind of really, this is kind of off topic, but you have people who like, I have a child on the way, and I might do things that I didn't want to do, but I'm going to do them anyway because I need to do this. So it's just like, what is that going to drive him to do, and how is that going to play out the story? Which now I'm really curious about.
Yeah, it definitely brought some interest into what they're doing, because admittedly, certainly in AEW, there has not been a lot of interest in what they were doing. So this does that. They kind of threw their name in the hat potentially for a tag team championship opportunity. And what I thought was interesting also, and I won't dissect it too much, but the style of the promo, again, felt very old school, where you kind of had to really read between the lines to figure out what they were actually telling us. This whole idea of we're going to get in a car and where are we going to go? Well, you know where we're going to go. It's going to be that destination and all of those kinds of things that allude to, oh, they're coming to Ring of Honor. And, oh, they're going after the tag titles. And even something as simple as at the end of the promo, that point and hold from Matt Menard, which was just like, we're going to get you. And that just freeze frame kind of thing. Like, it really, to me, drove the point home of the kind of wrestling we're getting from Ring of Honor, which, interestingly enough, kind of sans, the graphics and things like that, feels like what the NWA has been presenting, in terms of, we're going to give you that throwback presentation of wrestling. But I think Ring of Honor does it with, some of the glitz and glamour, of course, of what they're able to do now graphically and as well as in terms of staging and all of those kinds of things. So I thought that was really, really cool. This concept is going to come back up later in the show.
Oh, yeah.
Which I can't wait to talk about that. Like, as soon as I saw that, which we'll get to, I was like, we're going to park right here.
Park right there.
We're going to park right here. Up next, of course, which again, I think Ring of Honor does a great job of threading things together. Coming out of that tag team interview is a proving ground match between the Ring of Honor tag team champions, Undisputed Kingdom, and a brand new team to Ring of Honor called The Crown. One thing to remind everybody about is these proving ground matches in other places would be considered non-title matches, but in the world of Ring of Honor, a proving ground match always has a 10-minute time limit, and the job really lies with the challenger. If the challenger can either last the full 10-minute time limit or get a win in some way over the champions, then they are guaranteed a future opportunity at that particular title. So this is a real opportunity for this new team of the Crown to get an opportunity and make a name for themselves in Ring of Honor. What did you think about this particular tag team match?
1 second.
Uh-oh, sorry. Are you good?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm good. I thought it was a really great match. It was I appreciate, men with their shirts off. So let's just state the obvious with that. Yeah, I thought it was a really great match, and I do like the concept. I think sometimes when we see certain wrestling shows, and this is across the board, sometimes they don't necessarily explain what's going on. And with Ring of Honor, they have certain type of rules that have been set in like a long time, so you know what you're getting. So it's like, no, this is not for the title shot. But this is for a possibility. So if it does come back around, now we can reference this as far as how they got into the picture. Whereas some, promotions, and I get it, there's just a lot of moving parts. Some promotions, like, you're like, wait, how did they jump everybody else to get into this title shot? So I really do like this. It was a really great, another great match. I think, you're gonna hear, the last couple of times we have covered this, you're gonna hear like the same thing from me as far as that. It was like great match, great storytelling. It was there was some interesting moments. But I think, I can't remember if we talked about this on the NXT show or just in general. I think it was the NXT show. You're seeing so many like people, no matter what your shape or size in, you're not just dictated to one type of style of wrestling, right. Which is a great thing. And this is kind of what this match proved to be as well. So nonetheless, great match. But I'm now curious as far as Undisputed Kingdom, what's the game plan for them? Like, how's that gonna play out?
Yeah, that is a great question that obviously, well, I'm guessing in time we will figure out. Again, I want to make sure we shout out the Crown. They are Leonis and Maximus, which I'm sure you loved all of that. And they I thought they put up a great showing in this tag team match. One of the things that both Ian Riccaboni and Caprice Coleman, got to shout them out as the commentary team, one of the things that they pointed out, which I thought was a really important point in this matchup, is that Undisputed Kingdom has had a tough time in these proving ground matches because they're used to taking their time. And in a 10-minute time limit, it is not to your advantage to do that. So by mentioning that, you automatically, for the viewer, give the challengers some real credence here. Because if they're obviously interested in either trying to last the 10 minutes or, win in less than 10 minutes, but if the tag champions are not focused on that time, they'll just be lollygagging around and end up missing the opportunity to thwart some challenges. And they talked about how that's what happened also to the Infantry and how they got their title shot. So I thought it was a great job by the commentary team, just making sure everybody was looped in to why the Undisputed Kingdom could potentially lose this matchup. And so I thought that was a really, really good situation. But again, a great tag team match with the Undisputed Kingdom and the Crown. The Undisputed Kingdom gets the win. And, we look to figure out who potentially could be their next challengers. Could we see the Infantry get another opportunity, which certainly they deserve? Could we see, Cool Hand Ange and Matt Menard end up in that title picture? Certainly time will tell. But congratulations to them. Now, one team that does not look like they'll be getting a tag team title shot anytime soon is the Workhorsemen, the team of Anthony Henry and JD Drake. Part of what's happening with them, it's been kind of documented on social media that Anthony Henry at one point was recently fired from AEW, but then rehired by AEW. Either way, he's still out on injury right now. So that led to this promo from JD Drake, which I just have to say, of all the things that happened here on episode 63, this was the highlight for me. This promo was absolutely brilliant. Again, there was no backstage interviewer for this. And JD Drake, who we've not heard talk a lot on Ring of Honor or AEW television, tells just an amazing story about the challenge of what's happening with the Workhorsemen. He does not specifically talk about his partner being out, but he basically says that, we're not going to be able to do this for a while. And then gets into how that's been impacting every part of his life, not just his career, but his personal life. And then he talked about how he went to a store somewhere and they gave him $5 in change, but only 4 bills. They were 3 $1 bill and this $2 bill. And he told the story of a $2 bill. I've never been so impressed with the story of a $2 bill in my entire life. Reference his grandfather about how, you've got 2 choices. You can do one thing or the other. And if you're going to ever talk to me again, you're going to talk to me with these $2 bills. And it led to him basically saying, now it's time for me to be a workhorseman. What did you think of this promo? Because to me, this was worth the entire show.
I thought you were talking about the other promo, but this is also a good promo
well,
too.
This was mine.
The last one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do like. I mean, me, I love a good story. I love a good visual story as well. And it's so funny because the $2 is so rare, which almost references the ability of people who don't think they have any choices. Right. So it's just kind of like the people who do have these $2 bills, they realize that they have these $2. So it was really great because I could see the visual of him, talking about it. And now the next question was, as he was telling the story, because I don't know about you, but there's bits in the story. It's like, wait, so what does this $2 have to do with it? And he tied it all back around and, essentially just laid his manifesto, his reason and this is what we're going to do, the game plan. And, I love a good game plan. I love good goals. I love all that stuff. And especially when you get that hype, when you finally figure out this is the direction that I'm going to go and you put all your effort into it. So I'm for it. And I really hope as far as that, this is like the jumping point to the story. And it doesn't just, he cuts this promo and like, we don't see him for, 6 weeks or something.
Right. We've talked before, and I think we may have mentioned this on WWT Live, I think, in terms of, or maybe it was here, maybe it was somewhere, I don't know. AEW strength seems to be in-ring action. Their lack of strength seems to be when it comes to promos. And so it seemed kind of wild that, you know, you would have these people in the back at Ring of Honor doing these promos all alone. But if you look at the people who they had doing this, certainly in these first two promos, they were both experienced people. And in the case of JD Drake, who is a 20-year veteran who has worked all up and down the indies, heavily, of course, in North Carolina and Georgia and all of those places, he knows how to tell a story. And I think what he was able to do was loop a lot of people in who might have looked at the Workhorsemen as just kind of an enhancement kind of tag team. And then they looked at what he had to say and said, oh, I'm interested in him. I want to see what this is going to turn into. And so I definitely think that they've given us something to build from here with what has happened with JD Drake. Again, go back and watch this promo if you guys get a chance, because it is certainly one of the best promos I've seen come from the Ring of Honor AEW universe in a long, long time. And it didn't involve, you know, anything vulgar. It didn't involve profanity. It was a great story being told, and he did it in 2 minutes or less. So go ahead and check it out. Fantastic promo. And this wasn't the only great promo on this show, which again reminds me that there's some real promise happening over in Ring of Honor. That was followed by a matchup involving Toa Liona, who we normally don't get to see these days in solo competition. Of course, he is part of the six-man team that has been six-man tag team champions in Ring of Honor now 2 times over. That team, of course, is with Brian Cage and Bishop Khan. But this time around, he ended up in a matchup against a young man named Jimmy Wild, who I will tell you, Jimmy Wild is another graduate of the Nightmare Factory. Had an opportunity to call his first match. And I remember when I saw him, I was like, this guy looks really familiar. And then when they announced it was Jimmy Wild, I was like, oh, but the look on his face said, oh my God, what did I just sign up for? And he was all the way right, because Toa Liona had his way with him. But all during the match, which was so interesting, Toa Liona kept calling for Prince Nana, which was very interesting. And it feels like there's some element of story that's being told with that. What did you think of Toa Leona's match last night?
I mean, another good man with the shirt off. So check mark there. It's great because I think it really speaks to somebody who comes in and they know they're essentially putting the person over, or they have to, you know, do. And some people do it better than others. With Jimmy, he in face presence, in how he slumped his body and how he carried himself, is like, I'm going to go through with this, but this is not going to be pleasant. And I definitely don't want to be doing this, but, you know, for my career, I'm going to take this beating, because there's no way that I'm going to get out of this with, you know, a few slaps to the face. So, like, kudos to Jimmy for that. But yeah, Toa he just like manhandled him in so many different spots. And then, you know, really, and I think this is throughout the whole episode, as far as breaking that fourth wall, like you were saying, not having an interviewer and speaking directly to the people, to us, and looking into the camera. And I guess speaking to us, just in case Prince Nana wasn't watching, that like he's looking for him. And it's just like, what did Prince Nana do? Like he's out there swerving with the swerve. Like what's going on with this? So,
but that's probably the problem. Because, you know, Prince Nana was their manager for a long time. And so it's kind of like, Nana, where are you? Why aren't you here? This is really wild. So, yeah, I think it was just kind of saying, hey, don't forget about your other responsibilities, Nana, because, you know, we are part of that mogul embassy who had gold before Swerve ever did, you know, but all of the attention right now for Nana is with Swerve. He wasn't even with Brian Cage this week on Dynamite, which that could have been because he had gotten beaten up by Christian Cage. But be that as it may, it seems as though Nana's attention only is with the world champion, which I've got to imagine kind of understanding that could put Toa Leona in a very interesting spot. And I'm not sure that that's a guy that I want to upset at this point.
That part, but he also did a good job where it's singles potential too. So
Yes.
That's in the climate that we're in as far as look wise. Like I want to definitely see more.
Yeah, for sure. Especially in a singles capacity, because he's
Mhm.
usually been in a tag team space. But as you can imagine, in case you didn't know, Toa Leona gets the win over Jimmy Wild. That takes us to our only trios match of the night, which again, last week there was a heavy focus on trios, which I think there were like 3 trios matches.
Mhm.
This week, only one, but a really good one, as we see the 3 members of the Dark Order taking on Adam Priest, Zicky Dice, and Sean Maluda. Now, this match was interesting for a few reasons. On one hand, you've got Zicky Dice, who is very well-traveled, former NWA television champion. He's been pretty much all over the wrestling world, spent quite a bit of time in Impact Wrestling. Sean Maluda, who this was his first time in Ring of Honor, spent quite a bit of time in MLW. A part of that bloodline family that, that obviously did not get mentioned last night, but spent quite a bit of time in NXT as well. And then Adam Priest, who has appeared before in Ring of Honor and in AEW. And he is certainly a big name in spaces like Action and IWTV and those kinds of places. So a significant team of individuals. The question is, how would they fare against the Dark Order? What did you think of this trios match?
I mean, it's kind of like when a trios or tag team have it, like they have it. Like Dark Order just they had spots where, even beyond trios, right? It's like they have spots where, as somebody who's watching, obviously who's never wrestled, it's like, how did you guys know how to time all of this?
Yeah,
it was so good, because I think they did one spot. Did I write it down? They did one spot where it was like they had him up in like a crucifix.
Yes.
And it was just kind of like, how did you guys know to do this? Because, partnering with one other person and then essentially being telepathic in some sort of way is one thing. But for 3 people and to make it look so seamless, so it was a great match. Adam Priest, Zicky Dice, and Sean Maluda did a great job as well. But you can just see the obvious difference between people who work together and work together well, and people who are working together. Because you've also seen people who just this is just not working. You guys need to get together before you do this again. They didn't have that, but there was definitely a big difference.
Absolutely. And you're right. If this were a singles match with any of these 2 on the other side, it could have gone a different way. But certainly when you look at chemistry and working together as a cohesive unit, the Dark Order, very few people have been together as long as they have in this AEW Ring of Honor universe. And they work obviously very, very well together. Great timing. And you're exactly right. Several of the things that they did showed that, they've been doing this together for a long time. And I couldn't even tell that they were motioning to each other. Okay, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. They just did it. It's like a great singing group that knows, okay, we're going into harmony here and we're going to go, and we're doing this and doing that. So it was really awesome to see the Dark Order do what they did. A great opportunity, of course, for Adam Priest, Zicky Dice, and Sean Maluda. And I'm sure we'll be hearing more from those 3 at any point in time in the future when it comes to Ring of Honor. All right. From there, we go to... Oh, I was behind on that. Oh, there we go. I missed some of that. All right. So from there, we go to the second to last match on the card, which involved John Cruz and Aaron Solo. An interesting match in terms of its placement. Oh, man. Okay. So I know what happened there. So let me back up, because prior to that, and this is where I think you wanted to hang your hat, there was a great promo that happened after that trios match involving another trio. That is the Iron Savages and Jack Jameson. So if you've watched Ring of Honor, usually when those three come out, Jack Jameson is the spokesperson. He's always talking about, sipping sauce and all of the very unique double entendres that they have, some of which I won't say because it's the morning and it's a family show. But, the three of them are always pretty comical and fun-loving. And you could tell in this presentation that their tone had changed. Jack Jameson had pretty much shaved off his very popular mustache. And so now he's kind of baby face in terms of facial hair, but in terms of his perspective, far from. As this interview, I believe, was used to start the transformation from them being this fun-loving, happy-go-lucky team to a very serious team that's interested in getting wins. What were your thoughts on this very well done promo, I thought, from the Iron Savages and Jack Jameson?
Well, Professor, are you ready to go to Titty City?
Oh, wait. Hold it. It kind of went out, and maybe that was for good. I don't know. What happened? What'd you say?
Are you ready to go to Titty City?
Oh, see, what I'm not doing.
I loved it. I loved it. If you guys watched, I think it was I don't know, whatever show it was, maybe last Friday, where, it was NXT, where I'm good for, some HR violations that I am definitely, I was here for that promo. All the other promos were great, but I love a good, see? Triple Nines, he's now you see now ROH that was your
now you want to watch.
Now you want to watch. I'm here for some HR violations. I'm here for stealing that stuff. I'm here for the innuendos. I also did see the seriousness of it, but it being serious, but also with the as he was talking, one member is taking off their strap. It was very well done. But again, I'm here for HR violations and some puns and stuff like that. So nonetheless, I am, again, same thing. I'm curious to see how this is playing out. These promos are setting up for something bigger. It's just more the follow through on ROH's part.
Yeah, and that's what I think was so cool about this particular show. Some shows, when you watch them, you're watching them to see how a story ends. But I think in this one, they had this fusion of certain stories ending, some stories in their middle place, and other stories beginning. And I think they used those promo spaces to really showcase next chapters of stories, stories beginning, and the like. And I think, again, kind of the hallmark to a great show is to have all of those elements involved. Everybody's stories can't be ending at the same time. We're not here to see because if everybody's story finishes, what are you going to come back to watch next week? Right. So I think that they did a great job. And again, watching this transformation of the Jack Jameson and the Iron Savages is going to be interesting, because if they really focus, they can become kind of one of those really dangerous tag teams. They have the size, they have the strength, and now if they get the aggression, it could be a real issue. And again, another great potential tag team or trio for either the Unified Trios Championships or the Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions. Now then, to our last two matches. Firstly, we've got John Cruz, and MDB says they need to take those stories and put them on AEW. They could use them. Well, I think this is what's interesting. And again, I have said, in terms of the differences between AEW and Ring of Honor, it's almost hard to be convinced that the same person is writing those stories and putting those television shows together, because there isn't the thread of continuity between the two. There seems to be much better storytelling happening over in Ring of Honor. They seem to allow stories to be told, allow them to be told in a reasonable amount of time, where, it's not like, okay, this week we get what we saw from Cool Hand, Ange, and Matt Menard, and then next week they're in the title match.
Mhm.
No, they're going to take time to build that kind of thing. And, we'll take a few months before we get to that. So I think that's pretty awesome about Ring of Honor. And again, it's another great reason for you to check out Ring of Honor on Honor Club. Now then, John Cruz, Aaron Solo, kind of, if there is a story in terms of continuity, John Cruz, of course, just fun-loving, happy-go-lucky, would like respect. And speaking of respect, Aaron Solo has been looking to garner respect from Johnny TV, which we saw last week. And so this match kind of served as his own proving ground to Johnny TV to say, hey, you need to be paying attention to me. What did you think of this match?
I thought it was a good match. I feel like it was one of those matches that it's the gateway to the match we want to see. I feel like we're ultimately going to see Johnny TV and Aaron Solo eventually. So this was kind of like he has to run through, this for that. So it was one of those things where it's like it was a loosely veiled story, which is fine. And John Cruz actually did a lot of great storytelling, like in his story as far as wrestling. To me, it just seemed like, it's like, why doesn't everybody love me? Or like, why can't I get this win? Or why, like in his, how he was taking the bumps and stuff like that. So I really liked it, but ultimately I think we all want to see how this Johnny TV and Aaron Solo is going to, pan out, how it's going to result. So nonetheless, it was great. It was a great match.
Absolutely. Very, very good work there from both of these. Aaron Solo walked away with a fairly convincing win for sure. And we'll see again how long it will take for his paths to cross again with Johnny TV. So that led us, of course, to the main event. And the main event involved Queen Aminata against Robyn Renegade. And Robyn Renegade, of course, who has been in Ring of Honor before, making her return to Ring of Honor. Queen Aminata, certainly one of the most influential women on the roster right now, just coming out of that great program with for the TV championship, now connected, of course, with Red Velvet, where they are both seemingly pursuing Billy Starks, the TV champion, and Athena, the Ring of Honor world champion. Now, for someone like me, this match had an air of familiarity to it. And then I remembered why, because it's not the first time that these two women have battled before. You can take it all the way back to July 28th of 2022, where they battled at Battle Slam. In that particular matchup, Queen Aminata got the win. And the question would be, could that happen yet again in this matchup between two women who have really, really risen up the ranks in Ring of Honor? Of course, you're looking at, we've talked about Queen Aminata and making it to the finals of the Ring of Honor Women's World Television Championship. Meanwhile, Robyn Renegade, for those who may not remember, is indeed one half of the former NWA Women's World Tag Team Champions, along with her sister. And for those who remember, they ended up losing that championship while heading over to AEW after spending quite a bit of time in AEW, and now getting officially signed over to that brand. So your thoughts on this match between Robyn Renegade and Queen Aminata?
I mean, we just saw the promo with Queen Aminata and Red Velvet. And so this is exactly what I was talking about last week. You have them cut a promo together, and it's just like, okay, well, what are we doing with this? Are they going, they're targeting Billy Starks and Athena, but are they a tag team, or they're just, coming together because they both lost? Because this would have been a really great, and I don't know if Robyn's sister is injured, but this would have been a really great way to introduce them as a tag team against the Renegades. So it's just kind of one of those things where it's just like, okay, well, what's the thought process in this? Because Queen Aminata just had the match with Billy Stark. She lost it. Even due to the shenanigans, everybody kind of knows that. But, like if that's the case, then she should have an automatic at Billy Starks again. So she doesn't need to rise up the ranks again if it's due to shenanigans, and we all acknowledge that. So that's one thing. So it's just kind of like, okay, great match, but story-wise, especially what we saw last week, it's just like, what are we doing here? So that's kind of, and for again, I always love to obviously women's wrestling talk. I always love to see women wrestle. That's like, hands down. But it's just like, well, where are we going with this? What was the point of this?
Well, and to that end, where it did work is that you did have footage of Athena and Billy Starks watching this match, so it did show that they are focused on Aminata. Though I think, to your point, it would have been interesting to see Red Velvet at the very least on the outside of the ring supporting, to kind of continue that particular point. So it does kind of feel like, we've got a situation where both Aminata and Red Velvet kind of had their individual pursuits of those championships. And that, but I guess the question is, who's pursuing which title? Because, this all happened based on a match that happened at Battle of the Belts, which was the main event between Athena and Red Velvet, where Red Velvet was challenging for the Women's World Championship. And then after the match came the beatdown from Athena and Billy Starks, enter Queen Aminata. And that's kind of how we end up in this interesting thing. Now, what was also interesting to me was I thought that after the match, we would see an appearance from Athena and Billy Stark, since they were backstage watching the match, and we got to see them walk away from the monitor. So I thought maybe they were coming out, and then we might see Red Velvet show up, but that didn't happen. So I don't know if this is just, because just kind of slower storytelling that we're seeing in this particular space. Obviously, we'll have to tune in next week to see what else develops in this battle. Again, in terms of big cards for Ring of Honor, their next big one usually is in the summertime. I believe it is Honor some. Oh man, I can't remember the name of it. So Death Before Dishonor. That's what it is, which usually comes end of July. So in that particular case, we've got a little bit more time to see kind of things cook, about 8 weeks or so between now and then. So it'll be interesting to see how the layers of this story continue. Side note, and this is just, just because we're going to connect some dots here. Interesting connection between Red Velvet and Queen Aminata. Besides both of their interests in these titles, they both have worked significantly in All Caribbean Wrestling. So it's kind of cool to see that now play out on a larger scale. That scale, of course, and stage being on Ring of Honor. So that's a look at episode 63 from Ring of Honor. Again, you can always go back and check it out at Honor Club, which is available at watchroh.com, or you can always download the mobile app for Honor Club at your favorite app store. Now, I have a tendency, whenever the boss lady is here, it's her house, I always yield to her to close out the show. So because of that, you can find me on the socials at Bonnerfied. Lots of interesting things happening in terms of opportunities to check out my commentary work. You can check out Southern Honor Wrestling and IWE on IWTV. Have a big show tonight, actually, with Southern Honor Wrestling, where Paul Walter Hauser will be our guest matchmaker. And that ought to be very, very interesting, as he is also now involved in the main event, which is a War Chamber match. 8 men, 2 rings, 1 cage. It should be wild tonight. So I can't wait for that show to drop. You can also check out my commentary work with All Caribbean Wrestling, and that is on their YouTube page. Several matches on there from Philly Mania. In fact, All Caribbean has a big show tonight in Ocala, Florida. It's called Aftermath. And then we're gearing up for summertime, where the big Baja event, Baja Bash, is happening on June the 29th in Nassau, Bahamas. You'll be hearing a lot more about that really soon. And that'll be followed by a big event happening in Kingston, Jamaica in July. So we'll give you all information about that. You can also check out my commentary work with Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling and with the Nightmare Factory. And speaking of the Nightmare Factory, another show just dropped from the Nightmare Factory, Student Showcase 13, which is available right now on their YouTube page. So check that out. Ashe Wrestling. You can check out my work there at Ashe Wrestling. And then in case you missed it, had an amazing opportunity to call the Shad Gaspard Memorial Cup Tournament. That is available in its entirety right now on Fight TV or Triller TV. So check that out. Now, I will not be here this evening for WWT Live as normal because I'll be on my way to Southern Honor. But I know it's going to be a great show, so make sure you guys tune in. And again, follow me because I've got some other cool content getting ready to drop at Bonafide across all of those platforms.
Jeez, does the professor sleep?
Great. I need some sleep. Trust me.
Yes, let's definitely be on the lookout. WWT Live is happening this evening. Also, we are going to have a watch along, partnership watch along for Backlash with knockouts and 3 counts. So check that out, honey. We'll definitely be in the building. We're going to see who's going to be joining, and then we're going to have our post show as well. So a doubleheader on Saturday that you can check out. You can follow me everywhere at TK Chainrad. Make sure you check out Women's Wrestling Talk on all social media platforms at WW Talk Pod. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. Ciao for now.
What's up, guys? It's your girl Red Velvet from straight out of your mama's kitchen, doing what I do best, stirring it up, and you are now watching Women's Wrestling Talk.
Thanks for joining WWT. Don't forget to like us on all social media platforms at WW Talk